Welcome back to Chaos Corner. It's your old buddy, the guardian of chaos, Big Daddy. And I tell it like it is. Coming to you live to tape 25 feet below the surface of the earth for another episodic YouTube adventure here for story time. I can't thank you guys and gals enough for being here. We're only a few days away from Christmas 2024. And the real meaning, the birth of Christ. So Merry Christmas to all my fans out there. Again, much love and respect. Shout out to my moderators who are holding it down, keeping it real and maintaining. That would be my brother from another mother, Austin Nance, and of course, the OTS Tribal Queen. We continue here with the series of the legendary Toad's Place. Fans, go out and pick this book up. Stories from New Haven's famed music venue by Brian Phelps, the co-owner, and Randall Beach, a columnist here from the greater New England tri-state Northeast area in the shadows of Titan Towers in the Constitution State. Now, you know my connection with the legendary Toad's Place. I worked there as a security, aka bouncer, in the early to mid 80s and then for a second stint in the early 90s. Let's get into it. Go back and check out yesterday's episode, my opening monologue, followed by a second monologue to tell you what's really going on, and then Chapter 1. Fans, we go to Chapter 2 as Toads Goes National. Here it is. You're not going to want to miss this. Sit back and relax, grab a coffee, grab a tea, grab a beverage, grab an omelet, and drop an elbow on that like button. Subscribe. Leave a comment. Share this out. Get us into the algorithm. Help a brother out, man. In order to get respect, you have to start with respecting yourself. Once you do that, you open other people's minds to respecting you. Because there's three types of people in this world. Those who don't know what happened. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Those who wonder what happened, and I'm talking to that side of the room. And people like the GOC Big Daddy that make things happen. Simmer down now. And let's get into story time. Here on Guardian of Chaos, the YouTube channel. The legendary Toad's Place. Duck, duck, go it. Don't go Google it. And you'll find out what I'm talking about. The legendary music industry, which I was involved with for many years, as you guys well know, working security, private bodyguard. I've said it before, I don't have to say it again. Everyone from Metallica to LL Cool J. That's right, because it's me. It's me. It's the GOC. Getting off a little certain subjects here, you know that we're usually, for the wrestling community, the IWC, if you will, as I rumble, stumble, mumble, fumble, and get tongue-tied with my linguistic skills. So that's why during this holiday season, Christmas into the new year, I purchased this book. Again, the time frame is 2021, is when this was released and written, and it's an unbelievable read. Like I said, something different here that I have an association with that I wanted to present to the fans of this channel. Let's get right into it. Oh, stand by. Stand by, man. Let me get a little beverage here. It's early in the morning. So I have to get a little bing, bing, bing. A little hazelnut coffee this morning. I had a nice plain bagel. Toasted extra dark. A little plain cream cheese. It's going to be cold this weekend, so bundle up, everyone. And again, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate you guys being here. We had an unbelievable year in 2024. We gained over 1,500 subscribers. The channel really blew up. And I owe it all to you guys. This is a much needed temporary distraction. It's a stress reliever for what's going on in this day and age and these times that we're living in. because we are the chosen ones to be in this time. Stay mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually fit, because if he's for us, no one else can be against us. And that's a shoe. Brush up, fans. Walk in righteousness. Use your own discernment. Surround yourself with like-minded people. Be good to others, because we are in those times. Wars, rumors of wars, border invasion, crime, the economy, the planetary system. It's all like the perfect storm. And again, remember, when it comes to the book reviews and story time that we have, I'm reading this for the very first time along with you guys. So bear with me in my linguistic skills, as I always say. Chapter 2. Toads goes national. While Mike Spernoodle and I started to become friends, he and his two partners were fighting like cats over the bills and how to make more money to keep Toad's place afloat. I didn't know it at the time, the summer of 1976, but things were beginning to line up for me and my future career. I was using my free pass to come to Toad's more often, walking over from my karate school around the corner. Now, this is obviously co-owner, who was my boss and manager at the time that I was working there, Mr. Brian Phelps. How you doing, Brian? You're still down there in 2024 going into 2025. That's right, Toads is still open, man. If you ever get a chance to come to the Elm City, the legendary venues, from the Agora Ballroom to the Great American Music Hall to the Oxford Ale House to Toad's Place, the New Haven Coliseum, the Schubert, the Palace, there's nothing like it. Make sure you're strapped up as well, too, in this day and age when you come to the Elm City. It's no joke, man. Look at the crime statistics. I'm just speaking truth here. I give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. One man, unique, unedited, unscripted, raw dog for you, the fans. When I stopped in one Tuesday for the night of the Toad, Mike was at the door collecting the $1 admission fee. A guy started causing trouble about paying. Mike tried to talk him down, but the guy wouldn't stop. Mike, who couldn't afford to hire any security people and was on his own, grabbed him in a headlock and kept collecting money with his free hand. Rest in peace, Mike Spernoodle. When he spotted me in the line, Mike smiled and waved me up front. Come on in. Thanks, I told him. If you need help, I'm here. But Mike didn't need me. He had already called the cops and was holding on to the guy until they arrived. One night, long after that, Mike told me, I'm going to buy out my partners. When I do, and when you finish college, you can come in and work with me. Be the manager. I'll teach you the ropes. Because I liked Mike and it seemed like a fun place to work, I told him I'd do it. Plus, at that age, your hormones are going, and I knew a lot of women would be in there. Remember, the drinking age was only 18. By the fall of 1976, I was working alongside Mike, who had reached a deal with his two partners to take over the business as the sole owner. They hung around until the end of the year, and then they split. It was now Mike and me running the place. He encouraged me to consider it my own and work with passion and dedication the way he did. Mike showed me the ins and the outs of the business. He introduced me to the whole bar scene mentality from the owner-manager point of view. We kept Menta as the booking agent because he had so many contacts and knew the business. Menta also realized that some of the biggest blues players in the country were doing shows at a club called the Ch.2 Inn in Willimantic, Connecticut. Romantic Willimantic, if you will. The Ch.2 would have a good run from 1971 through 1982, and Menta knew that since the acts were already in the state, about an hour away from New Haven, he could probably get them to do a show at Toad's too. He went to work. One of our first breakthroughs was getting Willie Dixon, I think we only paid him about 600 bucks, but he drew a big, enthusiastic crowd. Dixon was internationally known songwriter too. He had written the Hoochie Coochie Man, I Just Went to Make Love to You, and Little Red Rooster. Rock bands such as Cream, The Doors, The Rolling Stones, and Led Zeppelin had covered his songs. He was a bridge between blues and rock. We also landed Bo Diddley, another blues legend, and like Dixon, a transitional figure from blues to rock music. He's considered one of the founders of rock and roll because he popularized that syncopated beat later used by Buddy Holly on Not Fade Away and The Who on Magic Bus and George Michael on Faith. Because you gotta have faith, the faith, the faith. Oh, you gotta have faith, the faith, the faith. Oh, baby. No? Too early? Too much? Too soon? Bo was a real showman. He always dressed in black. He was a big guy carrying a square guitar. He took our stage and using his booming voice and the beat, got people going with his songs Bo Diddley, Roadrunner, and Who Do You Love? And then along came Muddy Waters. Here he was, the iconic bluesman who had written I Can't Be Satisfied, Mannish Boy, and Got My Mojo Working, and Rolling Stone. A certain British band who would appear at Toad's many years later took the title of that last song and used it to name themselves. Anyone? Bueller? Bueller? Anyone? Can you put the connection of the two together? I think you could. That's why you're here. So you're better off when you walked out than when you walked in. So you can hold an actual fucking conversation and you know what you're talking about at your next venue or holiday gathering. Bar, pub, restaurant, water cooler, maybe even at Toad's place itself. As I said, so you know what the fuck you're talking about. That's why you're here. No one else gives you the unique content that I do. And nobody else works harder for you than I do in this space. And that's just a fact. I'm not competing with anybody else. I'm not better than anyone else. I'm just different. That's why you're here. At least I would think that's why you're here. And then along, as I said, came Muddy Waters. The last song, as I said, we used to name themselves Rolling Stone. Menta had arranged to present Waters with a key to the city of New Haven. The rest of the band knew about it, but Waters didn't. So when Menta got up on stage, bear with me here. We got some old photos, so don't go anywhere. I want to... as Menta got up on stage to present the key to the city to Muddy Waters, to Bo Diddley and Muddy Waters, correct. Remember, we're reading this for the first time, and I want to get you into the nostalgia of where we are and show some photos from the book as well. Classic, legendary photos. Pardon my hands for getting in the way, but I want to give you guys the true. I want to see if you can see these as well, of all the legends and what we're talking about here at Toad's Place. In those photos, you saw Meatloaf, Pat Benatar, B.B. King, NRBQ, Tom Jones, Bella Fleck, Buddy Rich, Buddy Guy, and Joe Jackson. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. So Menta was going to give the key to the city to Waters. Let's pick back up. Focus, Chaos, focus. Waters was pissed at him for interrupting the set and almost punched him out. Although we were all excited about having Waters in our club, Mike didn't have much money to pay him. and Waters always demanded cash. He also had to be supplied with a bottle of Piper Heidsieck champagne, if I pronounced that correctly, or he wouldn't perform. At the end of the night, Mike only had some rolls of quarters left, and that's how we paid Waters. But it worked out, and Waters came back to Toads many times. For one of his performances, ticket sales were a little slow. Maybe it was a late booking. I came up with a solution. We decided to do a flyer campaign around the Yale campus. There was no internet then. We charged only $2 with a Yale ID. We absolutely plastered the campus. The promo worked, and we got our capacity of 750 people plus for standing room only, and jammed them in there. And if you're listening to local authorities, you knew what was going on there. It was jammed. This was the largest audience we had for Muddy of all times. He performed when he was at the club. It was mostly young Yaleys with a ton of energy, and the place went crazy. There was so much buzz that Muddy got off his bar stool and walked from one side of the stage to the other as he sang. He had those Yaleys going. He even had them help him with a chorus line. I had never seen him do that before. Muddy was really pumped. When he got into the "Got My Mojo Workin'," he said, "Got my B workin'," and the crowd answered the same way. He made this sound by shaking his face back and forth at the impressive pace while uttering a guttural type of sound. People were laughing and crying at the same time. Just like that. What a time the 70s were, man. Let me just tell you. Great times indeed. There was another time when he tried to do something a little extra for Muddy. We tried to. We had a Muppet handled by some professional NBC guys. I just knew in my gut we could make Muddy happy doing this. The Muppet was a puppet controlled by a ventriloquist. The Muppet sat on the guy's lap, and they both sat next to Muddy. The Muppet started talking to Muddy, and Muddy answered him. He started laughing. At one point, the Muppet said, "Fuck you." And Muddy came right back saying, "Well, fuck you. No offense, I apologize for the cussing. That's what the book says." Muddy started stomping his feet because he was so into it. The crowd was really digging it. The Muppet had Muddy laughing so hard he was crying. I said to myself, my God, this is one historic moment that will never happen again. Just being a part of it and watching it defines why I've been in this business all these years. Along with the big blues acts came some rockers in the early stages of their careers. Toads was a launching pad for them. Meatloaf was one such act. Meatloaf's debut album, Bat Outta Hell, was released in October of 1977. Initially, it didn't do much, but it would go on to become one of the best-selling rock albums of all time. More than 43 million copies have been sold worldwide. How about that? Shortly after that album came out, we booked Meatloaf. The Toad Show was the first time he showcased those songs, such as Paradise by the Dashboard Lights, for a live audience. We had only about 100 people there that night. Think about that, fans. Let this sink in the history that you're listening to right now. Ellen Foley, who had sung on the album, wasn't available for the tour, so Carla DeVito, a veteran of the national touring company of Godspell, filled in for her. Meatloaf, with his big red scarf, was roaming around on the stage, sweating heavily and doing his sexual back and forth with DeVito on Paradise by the Dashboard Lights. What a great song that was. But the show almost didn't happen because of something bizarre that went down during the sound check. Meatloaf was pacing around and lost track of where he was. we heard this big crash. Had he fallen off the stage? He had fallen off the stage. There was a tense moment of silence where all held our breaths. Wow. Take a breath. Then we heard this voice call out, "I'm okay." He climbed right back up. The sound check continued, and that night he did a killer show. Years later, after he hit it big and still played at Toad's, he grabbed me backstage, got me in a headlock, rolled up his pants, and showed me a scar on his left leg. He told me, "You see that? This was from my first gig after releasing Bat Out of Hell. This is what I did right here at your club." "Okay," I said. "I'm sorry about that, big guy." The following year, in August 1978, we booked the Talking Heads. They had issued their first album, Talking Heads, 77, a year earlier. Stand by. As you can see, the chains are unraveling from around my neck, my collarbone. This does represent my career, my life. Let me put it back on here, fans. Don't go anywhere. It's a little heavy on the trap sometimes, on the collarbone, on the front delt, the side delt, the rear delt, the shoulder blades. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Let's go back to 1977, the Talking Heads. The following year, in 1978, as I said, I'm repeating, we booked the Talking Heads. When they came here, about 650 people showed up. At the time, I wasn't that up on the punk scene because it was a new thing. I didn't understand the music. I didn't understand the fans. I saw guys coming in with leather motorcycle jackets and sneakers, and I was getting nervous. They looked like bikers. Is this going to be a tough crowd, I pondered? I wondered. But there was no trouble. They were there for the music and to check out the band's leader, David Byrne. I gotta admit, I didn't understand what he was singing about. "Psycho Killer" was one of their hits at the time, but some of it's in French. "Psycho Killer, qu'est-ce qui est?" If I said that right, oui, oui, in French. Fa 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 better. And you could look up those other surreal lyrics. That's my best impression I got there, guys. You know, I speak Spanish and Polynesian and Italian and, of course, English. I'm a little rough. I got to brush up on the French. I'm tense and nervous and I can't relax. I can't sleep because my head's on fire. Don't touch me. I'm a real live wire. Everyone was just staring at David Byrne like he had a mental connection with all of them, like a Vulcan mind meld. I didn't see it coming. I didn't know they were going to be that big. Later, he played here by himself. But that first night, I dealt with the band's bass guitarist, Tina Weymouth, who was married to the band's drummer, Chris France. She was the one I paid. She was very serious at the time, but later we became friends. Now remember, this is Brian Phelps talking, the owner of Toad's. Another memorable act was Tom Waits, who played 2 sold-out shows at about the same time period in the late 70s. He was living in a hotel in Los Angeles and hanging out with Ricky Lee Jones, who would come to Toad's later on. Waits, then only 29, was working on a new album, Heart Attack and Vine. He was a great piano player and had his distinctive guttural voice. He sang funny, ironic songs like Better Off Without a Wife. When Waits took the stage at Toad's in his faded black suit and black hat, he was backed by a jazz quartet and a drummer who banged away at a garbage can. Waits drank beer and chain smoked through both shows. He was hanging onto the microphone like a wino on a lamppost. Remember, fans, bear with me. I apologize. We're reading this together for the very first time. One of the people in the crowd that night, Larry Dorfman, recalled that also on stage, placed on a stool, was an old-fashioned cash register. replete with bells and whistles. Excuse me, fans. Waits talked, sang some of his poetry while playing lead cash register. Some people in the crowd thought this was just too weird and booed him. Randall Beach, co-author of this book, who was reviewing that show for the New Haven Register, reported Waits also got heckled that night, but he knew how to handle the jerk. "That's my brother Roger," he said after a dude sounded off. "That's what happens when cousins marry. It starts in the home." When he wasn't lurching around on the stage, Waits sat at the piano and played it with surprising tenderness. But he introduced Waltzing Matilda by saying, "I'd like to do a ballad about throwing up in a foreign country." His voice was reminiscent of Louis Armstrong. Waits had a serious buzz on by the end of the night. He was still hanging around after the crowd left, and he got talking with a drunk off-duty cop who had been there for the show. They just sat at the bar and kept drinking. Of course, I let Waits hang out as long as he wanted to stay. And to give you an idea how eclectic the bands were that came through Toads at that time, how you never knew who you were going to see. We had the legendary banjo player Earl Scruggs, the former partner of bluegrass pioneer Bill Monroe and Lester Flatt, play one night. According to Randall Beach's review from that night, Scruggs, backed by his 3 sons and brother-in-law, had the crowd whooping and hollering and stomping until about 1:30 in the morning. They heard the old master perform the Ballad of Jed Clampett, yes, the theme from the Beverly Hillbillies, as well as Foggy Mountain Breakdown and Orange Blossom Special. I hope you guys and gals and fans out there have your notebooks out. That's why I present this to you. I hope your notebooks are out. I'll be taking attendance as well. Thank you. It's a pleasure being here with you folks. Scruggs told the mostly college-age crowd. After his second encore, he grinned out at everybody and said, "How sweet it is." For my first few years working at Toads, I drank on a job just like everybody else. I would do shots with some of the customers, but one night, I think it was New Year's Eve, I just said, "That's it. I'm done with the booze, especially when I'm working." Smart enough, right? I just felt I wasn't sharp enough for those long nights. I couldn't do my job well enough if I was drunk. I was the hands-on guy. I figured the best way to make Toads more successful was to be completely sober and focused at all times. Good advice. And that's what I followed as well in my extended career: security, bodyguard, personal consultant, bouncer, whatever the fuck it is you want to call it, bounty hunter, behind the walls for 25 years. You better be fucking sober. You want to survive? Otherwise, things will spiral down before you know it. This was an important step for me and for the betterment of my future. But Mike wasn't on the same mind, or of the same mind. He liked to indulge on a regular basis with whomever was in front of him. Mike would drink almost anything. A shot of Metaxa and German brandy, those were his favorites. Then he'd do shots with other people throughout the night. He graduated to Black Russians, 16-ounce cups. That's a strong drink, even though he was a big guy. He did go to AA meetings for a while, but eventually he succumbed to the alcoholism. He'd come in and drink nonstop until he left. It caught up to him like it does to all of us, unfortunately. That's another story for another time. But Mike wasn't, after working the shows, let me focus, Chaos. After working the shows at Toads for a couple of years, I became a better manager. I began looking at things from the point of view of the customers. One of the things that was always important to me was trying to make sure everyone in the club had a good time. Even in the early days with local bands, I would observe what people were doing. would see if everybody was upbeat and happy. As long as they were dancing, talking, smiling, and or drinking, the club was active and generating positive vibes. When things were right, you could always feel it. When they weren't, I would try to figure out some way to make it better. One of the things I oversaw was making sure the restrooms were in acceptable shape. The men's room got beat up on a regular basis. No offense when I say beat up, but you know what I'm talking about, right? When the big acts performed, I had developed a habit of scanning the crowd to see if people were were excited and involved. If the performance progressed nicely, with a slow but distinct build-up, I knew it would get people back into the club. At the end of a song with a long duration, if the band did it just right, and as the last note would play, the people would yell simultaneously. It would seem as though the crowd had synchronized with the performance. Whenever this happened, the show was a success. When people throughout the entire club had smiles on their faces, I knew it was a moment they would remember as long as they lived, helping to bring smiles to their faces and making them feel exhilarated. That's what the nightclub business is all about. Take it from someone who worked in the late 70s, throughout the entire 80s, and into the 90s, even into the 2000s, working as a bouncer. AKA doorman is what they call it now. I've worked them all from pillar to post and coast to coast and border to border, up and down the entire East Coast. From Florida to Connecticut, and every spot in between. From the age of 17 until I was in my 40s. Very interesting life. Working for all the bands that I did. Irreplaceable. Memories that will stay with me a lifetime. And met a lot of good people. Now in the big scheme things, what did it do for me? It made me experience and live life. And build character. I wasn't looking for anything else except to have a job and work hard and be the best that I can be at whatever it was that I was doing. Remember, crowd control, interpersonal communications, making sure people were safe. That's what I've done my whole life, and that's what I will continue to do until the day I die, when I go to meet my Lord and Savior, because we will all kneel and our tongues will all confess. Praise Jesus. And I mean that. I'm not being a wingnut or a Bible thumper. I'm speaking reality and what we're all supposed to do as Christians. I don't want to get too deep here, but this is a different kind of show, because this isn't a podcast, this is a show. And presenting this book to you at this time is something that I'm really enjoying, especially since I was such a big part of it throughout the area, throughout the club scene, throughout my life and working here personally. I hope you guys can appreciate that, because I know I'm really enjoying presenting it to you in different parts. And this is going to take us all the way through the holidays and into 2025. Eventually the word spreads as to what a great time the customers had. This is what breeds success and longevity, whether it be pro wrestling or the music industry. We also had promoter Jimmy Koplick helping us out more and more. Koplick had assisted a competing but short-lived New Haven club, the Oxford Ale House. Koplick booked Elvis Costello. When Mike saw that happen, we never landed Costello. He called Koplick and asked him to help Toads get national acts. Koplick liked Mike and said he would do it. Remember, now we're reading this for the first time. I know I keep saying that. This is the very first time I'm reading this with you. So please, as I said, bear with me. But luck helps too. One of the problems for the New Haven music scene had been the New Haven Coliseum, which could hold about 11,000 people, while the Hartford Civic Center had a capacity of over 16,000. And so promoters would bypass New Haven for Hartford. But on January 18th, 1978, Connecticut was hit by a heavy snowstorm. Take out your notebooks. So much snow accumulated on the roof of the Civic Center that it collapsed. Fortunately, this occurred at about 4 o'clock in the morning. So nobody was inside at the time, and subsequently, while the Civic Center was out of commission, the Coliseum got the big acts that came through the state, and sometimes Toads got their late night encores. What a time to live in here in this area. The greater New England tri-state northeast area in the shadows of Titan Towers. On September 16th, 1978, Bob Seger and his Silver Bullet Band played a well-received show at the New Haven Coliseum. He was riding high 4 months earlier, and he had released his 10th studio album, one of the best, Stranger in Town. There were so many hits on it, we went platinum in less than a month, meaning Bob Seger. The cuts included Hollywood Nights, and those Hollywood Nights. You guys remember that song, right? Hollywood Nights? I don't want to go on and on here with my karaoke skills. We'll be here forever, but I'll do a little rendition. We've got tonight. Who needs tomorrow? Let's make it last. Let's find a way. Turn out the lights. Turn out the lights. 'Cause we've got tonight. Also, still the same. I caught up with you yesterday. Still the same. Still the same. You played the game. 'Cause we're all still the same. What a song. What an album. I saw Seeger in concert a couple of times. Unbelievable. Feel like a number. Yeah, you remember that one, right? Feel like a number. And that old time rock and roll. One of the classics. Don't take me to a disco. You'll never get me out on the floor. In 10 seconds or 10 minutes, I'll be headed for the door. Something like that. And that old time rock and roll. The musical groove just fills your soul. I reminisce about the days of old. And that old time rock and roll. I'm no singer, man. I worked for many bands, but I'm no singer. But this is what you get here. An extravaganza, a bonanza of entertainment personified. Yeah, I'm a kook, I'm a whack. And if you don't like it, you can change the fucking channel, because I'm having fun, man. Woo, I've been sending out these shows to Toad's Place 2 and tagging them over on Twitter, aka X, at Big Daddy GOC. So if you're not here on the Guardian of Chaos YouTube channel, I don't know what the fuck you're doing, and you're over on Twitter, aka X, at Big Daddy GOC, and the GOC stands for the Guardian of Chaos. And we're tagging Toad's Place and all these on over there on social media. So hopefully Brian and all the boys and girls down there and the legends will pop in and view the shows here and the review that I'm doing here on Storytime. The legendary Toad's Place. And you know what a toad is, right? The co-owner here, Mike Spernoodle, God rest his soul, who came from Ohio, and out that way in the Midwest, if you were a couch potato, they didn't call you a couch potato. They called you a toad. That's hence the name Toad's Place. That's where it originated from, opening up in 1975 in New Haven. Historical facts, the truth. That's what I present to you here. Not just views and thoughts and opinions. Facts, so you learn something, and you know I love history. Let's get back on to Toads Goes National, the legendary Toads. I don't know, I guess we're about almost 40 minutes in. We might go an hour. I'm trying to keep these short, but it's chapter by chapter. Where were we? For the Coliseum show, Seeger did 2 encores, one of which was Night Moves. Yeah, Night Moves. But he was just getting warmed up. He left the Coliseum and came directly to Toad's to play some more. He gave the smaller but just as excited second crowd old time rock and roll and the classic hit by Van Morrison's theme, or them, Gloria. On August 25th, 1978, 1 month before Seeger's, the Coliseum delivered another gem for us. A performer who was in his prime, Bruce Springsteen. This was exactly 3 years after Springsteen broke through with his now legendary 5-night, 10-show performance at the Bottom Line in New York City. Those shows were a part of his tour to promote his third album, Born to Run, which was released 1 week after the blockbuster Bottom Line Run. And that fall, in October 1975, he was on the cover of Time and Newsweek in the same week. But it all got started for him at the Bottom Line, which unfortunately closed in 2004. The point is, the boss loved to play in clubs whenever he got the chance. Springsteen and his E Street Band were so hot in the summer of 1978, I think I was still in high school, that they sold out the Coliseum almost as soon as the ticket sales were announced. Some fans set up tents outside the arena to make sure they got those tickets. When Springsteen came to New Haven, he was on the heels of a 3-night stand, every night sold out at Madison Square Garden. The Coliseum show, a 3.5-hour treat, highlighted the band's new hit album, Darkness on the Edge of Town. The boss leaped into the crowd during Spirits in the Night. His already legendary saxophone player, Clarence Clemens, the big man, jumped in too. Springsteen kept going past midnight with Rosalita and Baby We Were Born to Run. Wow. But was he tired? No way. Fortunately for us, that same night, we had booked Beaver Brown, John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band. They were a bunch of local guys from Rhode Island who molded themselves after Springsteen and his band. John Cafferty, the charismatic and determined leader of Beaver Brown, got the idea of going down to the Coliseum to invite Springsteen to the jam with Cafferty's band after the Coliseum performance. During the sound check before the Coliseum show, Cafferty got the nerve to walk up to Springsteen and ask him if he wanted to stop by Toad's later on. Springsteen's glorious response was, yes. This is how it all comes together. This is how legendary nights, which I've been a part of and talked about for years, as have some of you, I'm sure, in your own lives. Everybody's got a story. These are what they're made of. And to be a small part of it really blows my mind. I'm humbled, I'm blessed, I'm honored. And then to present this to you, again, I'm truly, you come to a show, because this isn't a fucking podcast, with someone that's enjoying what they're doing. Is my hat on crooked? Should I tilt my head? Does that make it even? Ah, fuck it. You guys get the idea. Late that night, Springsteen left the Coliseum, got into the bus with Clemens and Miami Steve Van Zandt, and made the 5-minute ride to Toad's. We brought them down the alleyway outside. I threw many people out that alleyway. Through the basement, which is where the dressing rooms really were, and up onto the stage. Before anybody knew it, Bruce in white sleeveless t-shirt, Clarence and Miami Steve and Cafferty's bandmates were rocking the stage. People went crazy. They couldn't believe it. The guys jammed for about a half an hour. They played the oldie classics, Double Shot of My Baby's Love, and You Can't Sit Down. And for the second time that night in New Haven, Rosalita. Those who were lucky enough to be there will never forget the night Springsteen hit the Toad stage. And we were lucky that the Hartford Civic Center roof had fallen, because that enabled the smaller venue, the New Haven Coliseum, to book him and for Springsteen to be in town. It's all about karma, kismet, destiny. Am I right? What a night. This was the first superstar act to hit Toad's. Little did we know that it was the front and the first of many to come. Toad's place was now on the map, and we were just getting warmed up. I'd say that's an understatement. Fans, that's it. That's Chapter 2 here on Guardian of Chaos, the YouTube channel for Chaos Corner, as we present the legendary Toad's Place. Stories from New Haven's famed music venue. So I'll say that to say this because I tell it like it is. On deck, Chapter 3, Billy Joel, Ch.2, and much more. Don't you dare miss it.